Thank you. Thank you. to today's talk, a holistic defense strategy for modern ransomware attacks. My name is Adrian Corona, and I am the go-to-market lead for security solutions in North America. To begin with, let's go over a few data points about the ransomware threat landscape. Ransomware attacks are increasing and can severely damage a business. They have shut down the operations of critical national resources, including military facilities. But it's not unique to this sector. Both private and public companies are at risk. There are many costs associated with a ransomware attack. Cost of downtime, cost of recovery, reputation and trust, regulator actions, just to name a few. The biggest motivating factor behind these incidents is usually financial. And sometimes a criminal will use fear tactics, like threatening to publicly expose confidential information to entice these organizations to pay. Ransomware as a service allows individuals with scarce resources and minimal skills to run and execute a successful ransomware campaign, virtually lowering the entry bar for an attack. It is estimated that the cost of U.S. ransomware attacks last year to be at least $920 million and probably closer to $3.7 billion. A number of factors can influence whether victims agree to pay their ransom demand, including whether they have cyber insurance, the quality of the data backups, and the estimated cost of the system outage. Legal considerations may also come into play. In the United States, for example, firms that pay ransoms and their facilitators may find themselves in violation of regulations imposed by the Office of the Foreign Assets Control. When we look back at public threat reports, we clearly see that there's an increment in the success rate of different attack types. In this instance, stolen credentials represent 61% of reported events, while 85% of breaches involve a human element. In this case, this can be translated to phishing and social engineering attacks. Lastly, you can see that the average ransom demand has increased by 144% to roughly $2.2 million. Phishing attacks account for more than 80% of the reported security incidents, and 94% of malware is delivered via email. Not just admins, but users also need controls and warnings that are intuitive so that they can become part of the security ecosystem and help in addressing threats that may arise. For years, the federal government treated ransomware as a criminal menace. Not as urgent as hacking by foreign spies, the US government now has begun framing the issue as a matter of national and also global security. The White House has issued an open letter to companies calling them to treat the threat of ransomware attacks with much greater urgency. They state that the private sector needs to better understand its critical role in recognizing that no company is safe from being targeted by ransomware. The Justice Department has created a new task force dedicated to rooting out and responding to the growing threat of ransomware. The new task force will unify efforts across the federal government to pursue and disrupt ransomware attackers. In part of this task force, Google has pledged a $10 billion investment in expanding zero trust programs, help with secure supply chain, and enhance open source security. But now, let's talk briefly about how these types of attack work. Number one, you have an attacker sending a phishing email that includes either a malicious attachment or redirects the user to a malicious URL. When the victim opens the file or clicks on the URL, this process will try to download a malicious file and or some tools to exploit vulnerabilities. As a side note here, delivery of malicious software can be abused at this stage when an attacker inserts malicious code as part of an otherwise trusted software development cycle. This is also known in the industry as software supply chain attacks, and you probably heard about some of those in the wild. Now, going back, number three, when we think about ransomware encryption keys need to be generated per victim. In some cases, the keys need to be generated and retrieved from an external service. In other cases, they come hard-coded in the payload. Ransomware then proceeds to search for critical OS and common file formats and begins encryption. Some types of ransomware will also try to search the network for vulnerable hosts like a worm. Lastly, once the host is compromised, there are a few possibilities. Obviously, ransom demand notification to the end user. Encryption keys are usually removed from the victim key system and sent to a central host in some situations. But at this step, it's not uncommon to see data exfiltration. And this is to be used for further extortion as additional revenue streams. Now, you can ask, what can we do about this? Let me walk you through our protection framework. While there is no magic box to prevent ransomware, a cybersecurity framework will provide explicit guidance on how to create, operate, and transform your security organization. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has developed a framework that provides a common language and systematic methodology for managing cybersecurity risks. This framework is composed of 5 main functions. And at Google, we have developed a strategy for customers to adopt these frameworks and map each one of the functions to implementation activities as well as products and services. But next, let's focus a little bit on the protection aspects of the framework first. We have established phishing as a common threat vector. Let's talk about protection starting with Chrome Safe Browsing. Our phishing detection models integrate with Google Safe Browsing machine learning technologies for finding and flagging fishy and suspicious URLs. Safe Browsing finds malicious and deceptive content and software by constantly scanning the web and classifying and labeling dangerous sites, pages, content, and software. Safe Browsing also is integrated into the enforcement systems of all of our Google core properties, and it also enables third-party platforms and developers like Safari, iOS, Mac OS, Firefox, etc. to leverage the output of our detection pipelines. Click models use deep learning to identify suspicious links, and it will warn you before you visit a potentially dangerous site. Now, let's not forget that email is at the heart of many ransomware attacks. It can also be exploited to phish credentials for illegal network access and to distribute ransomware binaries directly. For this, advanced phishing and malware protection in Gmail will provide controls to quarantine emails, detect threats against anomalous attachment types, will protect from inbound spoofing emails, etc. And also, thinking about Security Sandbox is the capability to detect the presence of previously unknown malware attachments. As a result of all of this, Gmail prevents more than 99.9% of spam, phishing, and malware from reaching users' inboxes. When we talk about malware protection, it consists of many layers. To help prevent malware, Google will automatically scan attachments for viruses using multiple engines prior a user downloading the file. It will also automatically block attachments that are encrypted or that contain scripts from untrusted senders. It will also block executables from any sender. And there are also detection of malware that's still unknown by traditional AV engines by performing static and dynamic analysis of the scripts inside the actual file to identify malicious code. When we think about the endpoint security, Chromebooks are designed to protect against phishing and ransomware attacks with a very low on-device footprint. That's read-only. It comes with invisible OS updates. It has sandboxing, verified boot, and it also integrates with Safe Browsing and Titan C chips. The rolling out of Chrome OS devices for users who primarily work in a browser can dramatically reduce an organization's attack surface. And more so that most of the applications nowadays are web-based. But now, let's talk about what powers all these detections. Let's talk about the Google Antivirus Service. This service is multi-layered. First off, we have policy-based enforcements that are basically rules. Think about like no executables in Gmail. And these rules are aimed at reducing the threat surface for all of our customers. Next, we have our suite of AV engines. We run a number of engines on incoming payloads. The third one is we have what we call context-based protections. These are AI-based protections that leverage intelligence across components to prevent threats. As an example, think about it for a second. Traditional mail filtering technologies use attributes of an email to determine whether a message is good or bad. But now, for us, using the vast amount of data that we have, we combine all the signals that we have available for the email in addition to signals we get back from our scanners using AI. And by using this approach, we can catch malicious messages that might have bypassed by traditional mail filters as traditional, or might as well as traditional AV engines. And now, finally, we have our security sandboxing technology, which will detonate payloads within a virtual machine to monitor what they do and determine whether good or bad. Now, all of these components are backed by our team of security engineers and analysts that monitor the latest threats data to update protections for consumer users as well as each one of your organizations. Now, let's talk about account takeover protection. Compromised accounts allow ransomware operators to gain a foothold in victim organizations, perform reconnaissance, get unauthorized access and data, and install malicious binaries. In 2011, Google came up with a new approach for access management, BeyondCorp Enterprise Security Model. It really started as an internal Google initiative to enable every employee to work from untrusted networks without the use of a traditional VPN. BeyondCorp shifts access controls from the network perimeter to individual users and devices, and this allows employees to work more securely from any location, ensuring that only known, trusted, and specifically authorized callers can utilize the service. This access is granted based on a user's identity and the context of the request. And this definitely shifts the controls from the network layer to the application layer. The user identity could be, are you coming from a specific country? Are you coming from a device that is managed? Are you coming from this version of your browser, etc.? Another layer is password protection. Chrome has a feature called Password Checkup that checks the strength and security of all of your saved passwords and lets you know if Google believes they've been compromised, for example, in an online data breach, or have they been used in a personal account. It also gives you personalized actionable recommendations when something's wrong. Now, this one is an IT favorite. Password Alert automatically notifies users if they attempt to use any of your corporate passwords in their personal accounts. When we talk about as an industry, we came up with several solutions to try to address the account takeover problem. We use the concept of two-factor authentication to combine something that the user knows with something the user has. Examples of this are one-time codes sent via SMS, voice generated via the Authenticator app, or also receiving a push notification in a mobile or device. However, up until security keys came along, all of these solutions were still susceptible to phishing and or spoofing. Now, because of that, in 2013, we, together with the industry, came up with a solution, the Security Key Protocol, and therefore Titan keys. Titan keys use cryptography to ensure that a user can't be as easily phished, as the security key in itself ensures that you're interacting with a legitimate website. Phishing-resistant second factor of authentication that verifies the user's identity and sign-in URL. Now, let's take a look at how a layered approach will work against an attack. When an attacker sends a phishing email with a malicious attachment or URL, real-time phishing protections ensure that every URL a user clicks is scanned for phishing or social engineering. In the case of stolen credentials, Titan keys protections will prevent password utilization without a physical key. Chrome browser built-in protections will proactively warn and block users from downloading malware of phishing sites. There's also user downloads will be or can be scanned by Safe Browsing's malware deep scanning engine, which can detect sophisticated ransomware or crafted binaries that are targeted for enterprises. Then file upload protections ensure that malicious files do not seep into the corporate perimeter from devices. Integrated features with BeyondCorp Enterprise ensures that employees access sensitive corp data only from browsers that have additional protections enabled. Lastly, admins will also get visibility across the fleet of browsers about security events. Up until now, we focused on the protection aspect of the framework. Let's delve into the other pillars. Regardless of which usage scenario customers target initially, Chronicle delivers a unique value around both core security analytic pillars: investigation, hunting, as well as detection. Over time, this analytical value is maximized across all security telemetry generated by an organization, and not just the data sources that you can afford to retain and analyze. That means endpoint data, network data, cloud data, user-centric SaaS data, to name a few. It also includes alerts and base events from all security tools, as well as contextual data about users, assets, and threats, therefore helping us with a strong detection mechanism. Now let's talk about response. Typically, Simplify connects to a SIEM, such as Chronicle or any similar products, to ingest alerts. It's worth noting that Simplify can also connect to other alerting sources, just as phishing mailboxes or directly to an EDR. Once that's done, it then serves as the main SOC workbench, providing case management with purpose-built for SecOps, manage, track, and assign cases to analysts, things like playbooks that allow you to drive consistency in your response process and automate repetitive tasks. We do investigation. As much as we like to be, playbooks for the most part are not fully automated, so Simplify will put a lot of emphasis on enabling effective investigations by analysts. We also have integration on a threat intel platform. You can embed TI into every step of your investigation and response. When we think about collaboration, you can collaborate on every case with members inside and outside the SOC, including MSSPs, capture all documents and all SOC activity to drive that security team effectiveness and transparency. When we think about crisis management, you can leverage an interactive workspace to bring together stakeholders from inside and outside the SOC and coordinate a hands-on response to an incident. And lastly, business intelligence. You can effectively measure and track real-time SOC metrics to improve the performance and efficiency of your security team and sort of like rise above the daily firefighting. Now let's talk about recovery. When you talk about recovery in a traditional backup and DR scenario, it's about how fast you can recover your data. When you're talking about ransomware recovery or recovering from a ransomware attack, it's about how safe I can recover my data, and the speed comes second because we want to make sure that we have the ability to quickly identify a recovery candidate in a very safe and timely manner. We don't necessarily know we're dealing with a 0-day or any type of attack, and I need to go back in time to figure out what that is. So that's why you need to figure or to be able to control how safe I can recover my data. So in this case, we have created a reference architecture using Actifia Go that establishes an air-gapped cyber resilience environment that can be used to quickly identify a recovery candidate in a safe manner. There's also some of our partners have developed things and services on top of this reference architecture that could be very beneficial, and more importantly, saves a lot of time from the traditional ransomware attack recovery process. Now, to summarize, you can visualize how your products and solutions align to our framework. It is very important to mention that other fundamental security concepts like zero trust and secure supply chain. Now, to close out, I want to talk about a customer that was a ransomware victim. In the heat of the problem, they made a critical decision to convert their existing PCs to Cloud Ready by Google, which delivers a Chrome OS experience. As a result of this decision, in less than 24 hours, the first hotel was operating in the Chrome OS ecosystem and back on track. And in the following 2 days, 2,000 computers were converted all over the company, consisting of around 212 hotels in 5 different countries, effectively resolving that ransomware incident. As you can tell here, Nordic Choice Hotels was able to quickly recover from an attack that would have been otherwise incredibly destructive. At this time, I want to thank you for your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
McKesson's about a 185-year-old company. It has about 80,000 employees. It has core business units across medical surgical supplies, U.S. oncology, pharma distribution. When you think about McKesson's SAP environment from a transaction processing perspective, it's multiple environments in multiple countries for multiple BUs. And it is the heartbeat of our company that we're putting on here with SAP. It's what runs McKesson. The consumer expectation is changing. The expectation of a consumer is real time, always available in your hand, so to speak. We need to change the architecture to be able to meet that consumer's expectations. And the current environment does not enable that speed to either innovate and or deliver even simple features for the customer. So that led us down the path of, should we be looking at a hybrid cloud architecture? We've been working on migration to the cloud, and that brought in Google Cloud. We sat with them. They really brought in a different culture. So the first things you take into consideration being in the healthcare industry is protecting the customer data, the patient data, the pharmacy's data, and their PHI. So when looking at SAP on top of Google Cloud, that brings us a really good solution for us to protect our customer data. And SAP running on Google Cloud eliminates a lot of the overhead and allows us to free up our resources to put what I call above the line and allow them to add value to the business and not worry about SAP. I keep going back to enabling the business to do different things. When now we have an environment where we're running SAP in Google Cloud, we have all that data, customer data, processing data. We have the data lifecycle from the manufacturers all the way through the patient till it gets in the patient body. What can we do with that data now that it's sitting in Google Cloud and fully leverage ML AI capabilities that Google releases within that analytics platform and make it truly a better experience for healthcare, but also focus on making it really a healthier person. Keep the patient healthier.
I asked one of our analysts, what's the longest running search you've ever had on this platform? And it was minutes, which was life-changing for us because our prior approaches, that answer would have been weeks. There's no management of infrastructure, nor do I have to go and ask for favors from IT to get their help in managing infrastructure. It's a turnkey solution that keeps the security team focused on security work, not on infrastructure management work. This allows us to keep all of that EDR data going back 18 months. So we get a really rich set of data to do searches on and to do historical analysis against. So that's been a really big win for us.
Welcome to today's talk on taking an autonomic approach to security operations. I'm Anton Churakin, Head of Security Solution Strategy at Google Cloud. With me here is Iman. Now introduce yourself, Iman.
Hey everybody, my name is Iman Ghanizada. I am the Global Head of Autonomic Security Operations here at Google Cloud, and today I'm here to talk to you about how we're going to take a principled approach to threat management. So a lot of the enterprise security operations challenges that you see are very common. Everyone knows the challenges in this space. We've had these challenges for the last 20 years. Rising costs of tooling and infrastructure, exponential increase in data volumes, talent shortage, lack of automation. Like none of this is new to most of us, right? But there's always one question that execs always ask when they sign a big cloud deal, and that one question is, how do I actually modernize my security operations practice, right? And so, I say that to basically say that our mission is to accelerate the world's ability to modernize their security operations practices. And we do this through a people, process, and tech mentality, assessing how organizations go through large-scale change, whether they're large enterprises or whether they're small institutions. And so, effectively, we define autonomic security operations, and I'm so glad to share this fuzzed out data, but we define autonomic security operations as this place where we have proactive threat management teams that are also providing business value, okay? And this data is it's really compelling. This is actually our internal journey towards this place where if you look at the sort of core metrics over the course of many years, we had to deal with an exponential rise in data volumes. I mean, almost 30x, right? And in order to be able to scale across all of this data and scale our threat management practice across all this data, you could see that early on, we had almost 5%, of the events automated. And, even though we had this big, massive, increase in data volumes, in events, because of the approach that our organization takes to managing security operations, we're effectively able to drive, a bit of like a 90% reduction in toil, right? And really improve the efficiency of our security operations practice, both from a detection standpoint, from incident management, so on and so forth. And at the same time, driving down the costs of how much it takes, how much time it takes for practitioners, times the amount of cost and salary and everything else to actually manage each one of these events, right? And we get to this place where we say, okay, you know what, you look at a lot of the products in the industry, we talk about speed, we talk about scale, we talk about these metrics, but these are pretty tactical, right? Like the whole purpose of security operations is what? It's to protect our organizations, right? So detection and response, and also improve the quality of our preventative controls by, helping inform defenses. This is the concept, threat-informed defense, right? And so to get our security operations practices to this place where they're both proactive and driving value, right? There's sort of three core metrics that I always have in mind, when I talk to clients about, how we can sort of effectively modernize their practice. One of them is operational efficiency, right? How can we get to this place where we can help your organization improve the amount of automations employed and basically reduce the amount of manual intervention that your security teams need to make your SOC or your security operations practice dramatically more effective, okay? Second is the total cost of all of your technology and FTEs and everything else, being able to sort of budget and plan the growth of your security practice alongside the growth of the data volumes of your organization and all the business investments they're going to make. And then the third part of it effectively is how can we basically prove the efficacy of our security operations practice? Like if you're a SOC leader or a director of security operations, or even if you're a CISO reporting to the board, you're always going to discuss these topics. You're going to discuss how efficient your organization is at or your practices at protecting your organization, how you're managing costs, and also how you're finding threats that have been undetected in your environment, how you're increasing the efficacy of your security practice, of your security operations practice. Okay, and so to get to this vision, this North Star vision, effectively of what it means to be autonomic, right? Because even if you look at like autonomous vehicles like Teslas, there's still operators behind these vehicles that are building the tooling and doing all of the engineering work, right? And in order to get to this place where security teams can become proactive and value driven, right? We have to take a different approach to threat management. And that approach is the following. We need to reimagine the way we see our security operations workforce, okay? And we do that by having a set of principles on how we approach threat management, okay? So this is the people piece. We also need to transform the workflow that we leverage, okay? So we're going to talk about continuous detection, continuous response. And what that framework sort of helps us, consider when we evaluate investments in the SOC or in your security operations practice. And then we also need to leverage technologies that can augment our teams with capabilities that they just cannot achieve with legacy tooling, right? And this is where our security operations suite comes in with Chronicle, Simplify, Looker, Virus Total, and a lot of these other capabilities that you're going to factor into your technology program. Okay, and from a principles perspective, right, a lot of these may look familiar to some of you who come from SRE backgrounds, but really considering these ideas of how we shift our team's OKRs, instead of incentivizing analysts to, report on how many cases they've solved, let's incentivize analysts to consider how much toil they've eliminated, right? How many automations they've employed, right? How we can use service level objectives. And so, Anton Chuvakin and I, we've been writing these blog pieces on each one of these principles, and you're going to see them come out more and more. We didn't have time to cover some of them, but feel free to follow our blog on the Google Cloud blog to read our deep dives on how you can actually operationalize these concepts in your SOC or in your security operations practice. By the way, I'm trying to eliminate the idea of the SOC, the center, this room that everyone sits in, right? The SOC needs to evolve to the center of excellence, right? This value-driven organization that also helps inform the business on how we can improve our preventative defenses. But I consciously always say SOC just because I'm so used to it. Now, continuous detection and continuous response is this framework of that, basically, if you think about this, okay, whether you're an MSSP or whether you're a small business or whether you're a large enterprise customer, whether you're an engineering SOC, security operations practice, or whether you are a decentralized security operations practice, this model still holds. There's 4 core components of security operations, right? And that is, I need to have visibility of any and all data sources, right? So cloud, endpoint, network, application logs, whatever it may be, I need to have all of the data. I need to be able to consume all this data in a central analytical platform, right? And in this analytical platform, I should be able to derive insights from this data that I can then figure out what I need to do with these insights. And what I need to do with these insights can be automated through the form of playbooks, or, it can be, work that requires manual intervention, so on and so forth. And if you think about the first 3 parts of this CDCR feedback loop, right? Like that's like traditional SOC, right? That's, engineering, security engineers, rules engineers, and then, your tier 1 through 3 analysts, right? But let's break that construct and let's reshape this, okay? Because the idea of the continuous feedback loop was so powerful with software development, okay? It wasn't Jenkins and it wasn't Spinnaker that transformed software development. It wasn't the technologies that changed the perception of how developers, package, integrate and deploy software, right? It was actually a principled approach, that we call DevOps. And then it was the advent of CI/CD, right? That then helped inform all of these technology and open source tooling of where they provide value in this continuous model of an organization, right? And if we consider our security operations work in this framing, right, whether I'm a customer that just needs to ship my data to an MSSP and MSSP does all this pipeline, or whether I have a full-blown security operations center and I need to sort of evolve to becoming a more modern, fluid security operations practice, the model still holds, okay? And the piece to sort of close this off is this idea that we need to always be driving continuous feedback, okay? We need to always be improving the quality of our detections, our use cases, and our playbooks, right? So from data to analytics to response, we need to always have the feedback to be able to improve this. This also can be, doing adversary emulation and some of this other sort of work, or purple teaming, right? And then the other piece of this is we need to provide business intelligence. And what I mean by that is this is this idea I talked about earlier, the SOC becoming a center of excellence, right? The people closest to the threat vectors in your organization, okay, these people have the closest idea of how attackers are trying to navigate, outside or inside your organization. These individuals, the practitioners, you, right? You should be the ones that have a lot of influence with how preventative controls get employed across your organization. Because if you really want to go back to this place where we're driving down alert fatigue and we're improving the automations, right? Then we also need to consider that the people closest to the attackers can inform the instantiation of preventative controls and defensible architectures that can help improve the quality of the operations process, right? So this model, right, it's nothing new, but it's actually a model now, right, of how we should approach our work. And so everything goes back to what I always say is the pyramid, right? The pyramid at the top of efficiency, cost, and efficacy, right? And being able to prove these metrics across the board is really important. Breaking that down into the principles of how we work, the framework of how we consider our technology investments. And if you look at this, right, you can imagine that all of those security products and integrations that you may have all of the different logs that you need to consume across your cloud environments is all data visibility. Chronicle is a central security analytics platform. Simplify provides the response capabilities, and tools like VirusTotal can improve the quality can provide threat intelligence to improve the quality of context and enrichment in this workflow, and many other tools can sort of surface this continuous feedback loop, and also just process changes, right? Like maybe there's some interlocks that one person from our SOC, maybe the SOC, senior most SOC person has with all of the security champions in the DevOps world, and says, hey, this is the type of activity we've been seeing. I recommend, we consider employing this type of architecture to basically mitigate and thwart this threat before it even gets into the DNR process, right? So this is some of the thinking points of how you start to frame this, again, from the very abstract layer down, to more tactical and tangible parts. And then when you consider, the actual impact that the tools can provide, right? Here's an example of how Simplify had provided a really tangible business impact to, a global bank.
Thanks, Iman. Now, I want to briefly mention how some organizations have brought it to life, have manifested some of the benefits. In the original Autonomic Security Operations paper, we promised a 10x improvement. Now, can you 10x improve the number of alerts you handle? Can you 10x improve the efficiency of analysts? Frankly, with tools like Chronicle and Simplify, the answer is yes. And we do have numbers to confirm how some of the organizations have done it. We have examples of people improving the alert pipeline bandwidth and overall effectiveness, time reduced, and a few other metrics. When we think about this, a lot of organizations ask us, but how do we actually transition to that model? How do we adopt autonomic security operations in our organizations? So we build a framework around just that very topic. We think of tactical improvements, strategic, bigger, costlier improvements perhaps, and transformational, where you do operate on different principles that are similar to what Google detection and response teams operate on. We also organize it around people, process, and tech. So I want to highlight a few points. If you want to see the details on this, do look at the original autonomic security operations paper. Now, on the people side, and we'll drill down into the people side a little bit, I want to focus on the fact that you are changing the role of your analyst in the SOC. You are moving from people who click buttons on your screens to people who actually are detecting threats. Build detection content, research threats, investigate them, confirm them, and hand them off to incident response. You also evolve away from a rigid tiered model of 1, 2, 3, senior, more senior, even more senior, or junior, mid-level, senior. You're moving to a model where you organize by skill. On the people side, that leads you to that type of autonomic thinking where you can grow your SOC, grow your detection and response faster than the threats. On the process side, my advice for years has been to focus on alert triage first. And that's where you start making improvements first. Eventually, you evolve to hunting, and then you evolve to a fusion of threat research, intelligence, hunting, and effective investigation that's heavily boosted by automation. So you're automating some of the manual tasks, but you keep hunting and threat research somewhat human-centric. And that pushes you to both taking advantage of systems and humans. On the technology side, it's admittedly the least important of the three. You start evolving your traditional SIEM, you start adopting NDR and EDR, and you experiment with SOAR at the initial stage. But you do evolve to effective use of SOAR, deploy playbooks, and then later on you push heavier to a modern cloud-native tools, you automate more playbooks, you experiment with machine learning and other techniques for detection as well as for optimizing the performance. When we talk about this, the important part is still people. So, as I said, for deeper look at this, look at the 10x Autonomic Security Operations paper, but I want to highlight a few critical elements of your journey on the people side of the transformation. Now, organizing analysts by skill and evolving analysts away from just clicking alerts on the screen to building detections, researching threats, making sure the system works as a machine, not automated machine, but machine kind of involving humans and systems. You focus on clear success metrics. You'd stop obsessing about time to respond, because frankly, time to respond is a good metric. But if you heavily obsess about time to respond, you go with fast, and you don't always go with good. You hire partners. Most organizations will probably amplify what they do with service partners, MDR, but you ultimately expand the visibility of your SOC to other functions. And then later on, you learn more lessons from DevOps and site reliability engineering or SRE. You reduce toil, you increase the percentage of automation work, building detections, building research. And then later on, your team looks nothing like what your team looked like in your old SOC years. You don't have analysts watching the screens and somebody somewhere building detections. You have the same team that's ultimately out there protecting the organization, that's heavily influenced by the modern IT practices. Now, many of you are asking, how do I go about doing this? So let me give you a few actionable recommendations about how to transform and how to start doing this. First, you want to evaluate where you are with your security operations program. We're building a few tools to help you. We'll have a maturity framework and testing tool built in the near future. But ultimately, you want to know where you are so you can figure out the next steps. Where you want to go. If you see somebody say transformational stage or top tier or level 5, you may not need to be at level 5. You may not face the threats we face. You may not have the resources we have. You may have other security priorities. So to me, the target state is also important, not just the initial state. You also prioritize the investments in people and activities, and then technologies as well. You want to migrate certain technologies to become cloud native, more adapted to cloud realities. But ultimately, you want to scale people, process, and tech faster than the business, faster than the threats. If you are behind the threats, everybody knows what happens. But it's easy to fall behind the business evolution as well, as people transform to cloud speed. You also want to adhere to principles of ASO and implement this in your team metrics and goals. You're not just about clicking more alerts. You're about detecting threats better. You're not about promoting analysts from tier to tier. You're about delivering effectiveness in detection and response so that you can scale faster than threats and the business. Finally, you adopt and test and adopt tools that are modern, cloud native, that actually can face the volumes of data, volumes of threats, and volumes of business changes that are normal in a cloud-transformed organizations. These include Chronicle and Simplify, of course. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to seeing you on your autonomic security operations journey.
Connectivity underpins virtually everything we do. The way we interact with our friends, the way we communicate with our family, video calls, chat, all of the social media networks that we use. It also supports the world of business. So really, connectivity runs the world.
What really reminds me the scale of Vodafone
is actually the amount of data that we handle. Billions of records, really. I mean, multi-exabytes on our data ocean.
Last year, we have over 100 exabytes of data to process to serve all our customers. An exabyte of data is one with a lot of zeros.
It's 1,000 petabytes.
We operate in 21 countries with 52 partner markets. More than 300 million mobile customers, 28 million fixed customers, 22 million TV customers, more than 142 million IoT devices connected to our network.
Data is at the heart of every business decision.
Google Cloud underpins our entire digital transformation. We're moving from a telco to a tech comms company to launch new services that will enhance our customers' lives in ways we've never seen before.
We need to connect with people, we need to connect with things.
Vodafone as a company has 3 pillars to our strategy, making sure everyone in society has access to services, connecting the underconnected, and making sure we have a positive impact on the planet.
Before, we used to get the data into fragmented. We had to really revisit the data. Google Cloud has helped us to bring our fragmented data together. We have an amazing team around the world who brings the data to life.
They can work together very easily now, handling billions of records in a matter of milliseconds.
Now we can get our insight much quicker.
We can scale and process all of that data to create a fantastic customer experience. And before, that was impossible.
Security is in the core of our priorities and commitments to the customer.
In Vodafone, we are obsessed with the privacy of our customer data.
Google Cloud comes up with a lot of the tools that has enabled us to provide analytics and machine learning to be able to help our customers to make the right choices. Now we can help customers to be more in control of the spend.
Managing churn and keeping customers loyal to Vodafone is a critical focus for us.
I hope the customer don't know how much effort we're putting, because one measure of success for me is that the customers have a seamless experience.
Google Cloud has helped us to put the customer at the heart of everything we do.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Joshua Hazlett, a Strategic Technology Partner Manager for Security Partnerships here at Google Cloud. Joining me is Josh Salonis, the Field CTO for Cortex at Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks is one of our top ISV partners, offering a wide range of security solutions that tightly integrate with Google Cloud, including their Unit 42 threat intelligence offerings. And today we want to focus on an increasingly important topic, the ransomware landscape, the proliferation of attacks, and how customers are being affected. Josh, thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
According to the Unit 42 2022 Ransomware Threat Report, ransomware has been a persistent threat for organizations across many industries and geographies. And it's clear this type of threat will be an increasing concern for IT operators. So Josh, I'm curious, what trends have you seen emerge in the last year as ransomware gangs adapt to becoming more increasingly ruthless and effective?
One of the key takeaways is that ransoms keep rising, both in demands and the payments that these operators are receiving. Among our incident response cases in 2021, which were predominantly US-based companies, the average ransom demanded was approximately $2.2 million. Now, further, our recent Unit 42 threat report, ransomware threat report, was an analysis of leak sites where ransomware operators are providing snippets of stolen information as part of a name and shame multi-extortion kind of tactic designed to coerce victims to pay ransom demands, even if they think that they can recover from the encryption event itself.
Yeah, I would say those are certainly concerning insights, and organizations need to rapidly adapt to cyber criminals who are doubling down on finding additional ways to extort victims using ransomware. So from your research, how have ransomware gangs evolved over the past year to improve their success with ransomware campaigns?
What's really interesting is the evolution of these threat actors. 10 years ago, we would have talked about the use of zero-day attacks as being the domain of nation states, almost exclusively. But now what we're seeing is with, as I pointed out, when you're having ransomware operators asking for $2.2 million ransoms and having a large portion of that getting paid, these are extremely well-funded adversaries who are now starting to leverage zero-day attacks and even reverse engineering patches for day one exploits that they can leverage against your organizations. And what's interesting is with the ransomware as a service business model, the problem of building these reliable encryption packages, software, if you will, is now leased so that anybody who's able to go and infiltrate an organization can encrypt these organizations and then have third parties manage the rest of the process. Further, what we're seeing is an evolution even beyond double extortion, as I was talking about with the name and shame sites. And what we're looking at is up to even quadruple extortion, which is mind-boggling to even think about, because when you have that first level of extortion, which is encryption, and the goal there is business interruption. The second level of extortion is when data is exfiltrated, and then these name and shame sites are leveraged in order to go and embarrass and share information that has been stolen. Next, you're looking at triple extortion, where customers themselves are being directly engaged by these adversaries whenever the organization that has been encrypted is not willing to play ball with the ransomware operators. And finally, distributed denial of service to make it even more difficult for you to recover has been starting to get used more and more by these adversaries.
Well, I mean, due to many of the items that you just discussed, like double and even quadruple extortion and leak sites being the new normal for emerging ransomware groups, the stakes have been raised, and it's no longer just access to your own data that's at stake, as significant as that can be to a company, but also the reputation and trust that a customer has in an organization is on the line. So, as ransomware activity continues to rise worldwide, I would imagine preparation is key to thwarting these attacks. So what recommendations and best practices do you advise business and IT leaders to consider?
I think that we need to understand this as a problem in two parts. One, these ransomware operators have become truly advanced threats. They're using 0 days and other similar attacks that is something that was not really the domain of cyber criminals in the past to the extent that we're seeing now. And what's even more scary is the way that these tools are being automated in order to go and identify organizations that can be infiltrated and then to deploy the ransomware packages themselves. So with that in mind, you need to think about how you can prevent a ransomware operator from getting it. And truly, there's one of three ways that it's likely going to happen. One is that they're going to find an externally exposed service that they have an exploit for, and that's going to be their initial compromise. Two, you're going to have some type of remote access like RDP available on the war zone that they're going to be able to leverage something like credential stuffing in order to get in, and then that's that initial compromise. Third of which, of course, is email, and that's another problem in and of itself. So let's talk about addressing those first two issues first. How do you defend your attack surface? Attack surface management is a critical capability in 2022, as it allows you to have a real-time view into your ephemeral environments. I'm talking about cloud workloads, where containers may be getting stood up or stood down over and over throughout a day, a week, monthly. You don't know what you have at any point in time unless you're constantly monitoring it. And with the automation that we're seeing these adversaries leveraging, they are essentially using attack surface management against you. So you need to go and fight that fight on a level playing field. The next thing that you need to do, and this is addressing both the phishing attack for that initial compromise, as well as the possibility that somebody does get initial foothold into your organization, is that you need to have strong and cohesive detection response capabilities throughout your organization so that you can detect that lateral movement or whatever level of compromise that has occurred, hopefully before you get encrypted. Finally, well, not quite finally, you also need to have a recovery plan in case everything goes sideways. You need to understand the state of your backups. Can you restore from backups? And very importantly, can you do so at scale? The idea behind business interruption is to encrypt as many systems as possible in order to prevent you from being able to do business. Now, when that happens, if you're not able to recover those systems in parallel, it's going to draw out the time it takes for you to recover, if you even can. Finally, I recommend that you find a trusted partner, some type of IR firm that can help you assess your posture and move forward in the case of an unfortunate ransomware event.
Those are great points, Josh. And thank you so much for being with us here today, sharing your expertise on ransomware, the landscape, what customers can do to protect their organizations. And thank you to our audience for attending today's session. For more information, please visit Google Cloud Marketplace to learn about Palo Alto Networks solutions for protecting your applications and workloads on Google Cloud, and even take a look at the Unit 42 offerings for having a trusted partner to help you if you should have a ransomware event. Thank you again for attending, and thank you, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
cloud-native risk management and threat detection with Security Command Center. I'm Tim Wingerter, a product manager working on misconfiguration and vulnerability detection capabilities inside of Google Cloud Security Command Center. A little later, I'll be joined by Thomas Mariadek, Head of Cloud Platform Security and Compliance at Veolia.
Hi, Tim. Thank you. Very happy to be with you today for speaking about Security Command Center.
Thanks, Thomas. I look forward to checking in with you a little later. In today's session, I'll give you a quick overview of Security Command Center Premium for those new to the product and discuss some of the new functionality from the last few months. Then we'll check in with Thomas to hear how he is leveraging Security Command Center Premium at Veolia. Let's get started. First, a little refresher of the 4 pillars of value Security Command Center Premium, or SCC for short, has to offer. SCC is Google Cloud native security solution that federates security insights across your organization. We like to describe it as offering 4 pillars of value that help security teams stay apprised of their expansive and dynamic cloud estate, monitor and respond to misconfiguration, vulnerabilities, and threats, and benchmark your organization against common compliance industry standards. Let's spend a few minutes on the first 3 categories, and I'll come back to the compliance reporting a bit in the What's New section. First, asset and resource visibility. As your organization's cloud consumption scales, SCC takes on the burden of staying continuously up to date with your complete asset inventory and does so in real time, so that you don't need to worry about security blind spots that go unmonitored or the overhead associated with trying to manually curate it. It also gives you the power to interact with that inventory directly to understand it more in depth, offering the ability to see how things look in the moment or exactly what and how things have changed over time. This complete asset inventory is also the foundation upon which the next 3 pillars are built, with assets serving as an aggregation point for findings across the platform. Next is misconfiguration and vulnerability detection as a part of the risk management offering. There are 2 services within SCC leveraging that holistic real-time feed of your GCP estate. Security Health Analytics, primarily focused on configuration best practices, and Web Security Scanner, a version of Google's own application vulnerability scanning solution focused primarily on OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. Security Health Analytics is a service that continuously runs over 150 checks to scan for misconfigurations, things like overly permissive access, open ports, and other things that leave the door open for attackers. Each finding produced by Security Health Analytics also provides step-by-step guidance so that users, even those without direct experience with the issue at hand, can remediate. Most are also mapped to compliance benchmark controls so that without any additional effort on your part, you're getting near real-time tracking of your organization's health against the benchmarks like CIS 1.2, PCI DSS, and ISO 27001. Web Security Scanner is a version of Google's own internal application vulnerability scanning service focused on OWASP top 10 web app vulnerabilities. It performs active tests to help find things like cross-site scripting or weak passwords to help you close them before attackers find them. In SCC Premium, Web Security Scanner has a powerful auto-discovery capability that identifies applications across your estate, enabling security teams to act sooner on a much broader corpus of the estate than a manual effort alone would provide. The third pillar is threat detection. Cloud topology is expansive and varies between clouds. With that come novel attack and protect services. SCC equips security teams with detection modules across these protect services. Event threat detection protects your identity, API, managed services, and network surfaces through log-based processing, paired with Google's own internal threat intelligence and observations about typical entity behavior. Container threat detection leverages our Kubernetes expertise to provide extremely robust but lightweight runtime coverage for GKE workloads from the most common attack techniques like reverse shell or added binaries being executed. And lastly, virtual machine threat detection protects your compute service by processing information from the hypervisor in a completely agentless way to identify suspicious activity like crypto mining, one of the most common forms of cloud compromise, without impacting workload performance. Each of these put high-quality, actionable findings into SCC for quick action and investigation. For a deeper dive on threat detection and to hear what's so special about each of these technologies, check out my colleague Timothy Peacock's Security Talk from March. That's a quick overview of SCC today. Let's take a look at some of the new and exciting capabilities. First up is custom posture detection inside of Security Health Analytics. Custom posture detection allows you to create and author detections using common expression language that augment the coverage of our existing out-of-the-box detectors. For example, if the default key rotation period of 60 days does not work for you, you can author your own detection of a rotation period of your choosing. As you can see in this picture, the detections show up just like any other detection, and you can choose the severity and enrich it with properties of your choosing. Just like our out-of-the-box scanners, custom detectors operate in both real-time and batch scanning. Additionally, you can choose the scope at which these custom detections operate. They can operate at the org level, or you can scope them to a specific folder or project so they're operating on just the assets that you need. We're extending a similar configuration capability to threat detection. Now, you can configure each of these detection logic to incorporate your own security analysis. As you can see here, I've created a detection or configured a detection rule that looks for specific bad IPs. You can see that they show up as threat findings, just like the rest of the threat findings in Security Command Center. There are 5 modules in total that offer configuration support: bad domain, bad IP, unexpected compute engine image, image type, and unexpected region. I mentioned that I would come back to the compliance dashboard, and here it is. In addition to the continuous monitoring against the popular benchmarks that we already support, Google Cloud Computing Foundation's benchmark, PCI DSS, NIST 853, and ISO 27001, we have added additional coverage support for OWASP Top 10 2017 and 2021, as well as updated the CIS Google Cloud Benchmark Platform Foundation from 1.1 to 1.2. This experience allows you to see how you're performing against those benchmarks in real time, as well as take a report out for a chosen benchmark for auditing purposes. The final update I wanted to cover is around SEC's integrations. We recognize that there is other security tooling out there, and we want to make it really easy to get data out of SEC so that you can continue getting your work done. You can stream SEC data into BigQuery as a fully managed solution, no code or manual effort on your part, to perform custom analysis or power existing workflows. Similarly, it's very easy to send SEC data to your SIM or SOAR of your choice to continue investigation or handle remediation. With that, let's check in with Thomas and hear how Veolia is using Security Command Center Premium in their organization. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Tim.
Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Veolia?
Yes, of course. I'm Thomas. I'm a product manager and technical lead working for Veolia. We are a leader in ecological transformation, and here our main sectors are water, waste, treatment, and energy. And for my part, I'm in charge of the security of our cloud platform in the group. And I support the technical teams in charge of their project on a daily basis to help them to improve together for security. We also support 39 business units, which use GCP, around near 31 countries.
Welcome. That is quite the footprint there with 39 different business units. Could you tell us about how getting started on SEC was and how rolling it out was?
Starting on SEC was very, very easy. The adoption was very quick. It's only take us maybe a few days to take a grip with the project. It is very clear, and it's allow immediate access to impacted resource. The remediation advice linked to each other is something very useful to promote rapid treatment and understand what is the impact. Maybe the longest things will have to be educating teams on GCP project owner to encourage them to use the project on daily basis.
That's great to hear. With that kind of footprint, I imagine you made use of Security Command Center's delegated views feature. Could you tell us a little bit about how you manage delegation of posture issues in those business units?
Yes, we have a fairly pyramidal way of working. At group level, we have a global view that allows us to work on governance and the future change of our policies. And we also address our own scope, of course. And we support business units. Then thanks to SCC access control view, the BU are autonomous and they can see their own perimeter on their own folders inside of their organization to address their alert. And finally, we have the project owners and the project teams who we are encouraged to use SCC for address the findings directly inside of the project.
Great, thank you. With such a large attack surface, could you tell us a little bit about how those folks are using SCC to address and remediate threats in your environment?
For us, overall, using SCC for us is a question of methodology. We have divided our action in 3 phases to work efficiently. The first one was about cleaning. We start on SCC Premium by limiting all what we call the noise, where it's false positive because it's related to something, it's normal functioning of the organization on our way to work. And the old alerts, maybe it's about some resources doesn't exist anymore. And we make this big clean first. After that, we start remediation. We have created batches of manual processing based on 2 things, both the Security Command Center alert and threat and their criticality, on the other side about our policies, our own policies on what we want to do about security. And we address them directly with project teams and the project owners. We work together with them to reduce the existing security debt on the organization, on the projects. And the third one is what we are starting to do now. We are preparing the future. In today's world, in my sense, you doesn't have so much time between when an alert is coming and when you have remediated it. You have to go very quickly. So it's why we are working around auto remediation. We take part of the Security Command Center real-time alerting, which is going through PubSub and its launch cloud function. We remediate automatically each time it's possible.
That sounds like a well-oiled machine. Could you share a recent example of how you responded to a threat with the audience?
Yeah, for example, and it was one of our first alerts on the Security Command Center. We have 1,800 alerts about a remote shell in a container. It's a false positive, but we wasn't being hacked on that. But it was very easy to go through all these alerts and find the source of them, which is directly the image. On the image, one developer has put a remote shell on it, and we find it very quickly due to Security Command Center.
Thank you for sharing that. Is there any other comments you'd like to share about SCC before we wrap up?
Something else is, and it's not the base goal of the project, but it also helped us to improve other aspects of the organization, like sustainability and like FinOps. Because, for example, each time we see something on Security Command Center, we have to ask ourselves, did I really need these resources? Is it right used, right sized, on that kind of things? We have some evolution about these both things, which is sustainability, and it's very important for Veolia, and about FinOps, which is also important for everybody.
All right, Thomas, thank you for joining us. That was really insightful, and we liked hearing how Veolia is using Security Command Center in your organization.
Thank you, Tim. It was a pleasure to be with you today, and thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you again for tuning in to our talk. If you'd like to learn more about Security Command Center, please check out these resources on the screen and enjoy the rest of the summit.
financial services industry is rapidly transforming with the advance of new digital and cloud technologies such as data analytics and AI. Banks are using cloud technologies to provide better customer service, reduce risk, and increase employee collaboration. That's why we are thrilled to announce Google Cloud's strategic partnership with Deutsche Bank. Working together, we'll be solving key challenges for customers and the industry at large.
We always said last year in the restructuring of Deutsche Bank that technology is a key part of the way ahead of Deutsche Bank, next to the focus on clients, next, obviously, on focus on people and leadership. But technology will define the future of banking.
Our engineers will collaborate to modernize Deutsche Bank's core technology infrastructure, create new digital solutions to better connect with clients, build sophisticated tools for fraud prevention and risk management, and harness Google Cloud technologies to build new financial products and services.
The partnership with Google is a transformational one. On the one hand, it will clearly give us opportunities to increase cost synergies, be even more efficient, but far more important, it will actually give us the opportunity to go for new products, to go for new solutions, and to be even better at clients and thus increasing revenues. And with the experience over the last 6 months, how we work together, we have another chance. And that is not only transforming technology, but actually attracting the best talent.
Deutsche Bank is an industry pioneer with a long history of innovation in financial services. We are excited about this strategic partnership, and we are eager to get started.
We are super excited with the work we have started with Google. We know it's the right journey, and we are absolutely convinced that we will be both successful.
We have to be 100% right about protecting our customers' environment, but hackers or cyber criminals, they have to be right only once. Palo Alto Networks and Google Cloud are solving for securing your private data. Palo Alto Networks is the #1 cybersecurity provider. We chose Google Cloud for its global network and its ability to provide machine learning and artificial intelligence capabilities. Combining those technologies and their physical infrastructure capabilities really enable us to secure every aspect of the cloud workload.
Customers face many challenges as they come to cloud. One of the key challenges is around security and how do they do security in the speed of cloud adoption. Google Cloud and Palo Alto Networks have partnered to build security that's easy, that gets deployed automatically, and provides that peace of mind to customers.
We started out a relationship together over 3 years ago. At that time, we didn't even have one product that's running on Google Cloud. So fast forward 3+ years later, now we have over 15 listing on Google Cloud marketplaces.
We have combined the strengths of Palo Alto Networks with the strengths that Google and Google's products bring to the table to create joint innovative solutions that are only possible if you combine the strengths of two leading companies.
Growing together, starting from nothing to where we are, this is what's really exciting. I could see more of our solutions running on Google Cloud.
McKesson's about a 185-year-old company, has about 80,000 employees. It has core business units across medical surgical supplies, U.S. oncology, pharma distribution. When you think about McKesson's SAP environment from a transaction processing perspective, it's multiple environments in multiple countries for multiple BUs. And it is the heartbeat of our company that we're putting on here with SAP. It's what runs McKesson. The consumer expectation is changing. The expectation of a consumer is real time, always available in your hand, so to speak. We need to change the architecture to be able to meet that consumer's expectations. The current environment does not enable that speed to either innovate and or deliver even simple features for the customer. So that led us down the path of, should we be looking at a hybrid cloud architecture? We've been working on migration to the cloud, and that brought in Google Cloud. We sat with them. They really brought in a different culture. So the first thing to take into consideration being in the healthcare industry is protecting the customer data, the patient data, the pharmacy's data, and their PHI. So when looking at SAP on top of Google Cloud, that brings us a really good solution for us to protect our customer data. And SAP running on Google Cloud eliminates a lot of the overhead and allows us to free up our resources to put what I call above the line and allow them to add value to the business and not worry about SAP. I keep going back to enabling the business to do different things. When now we have an environment where we're running SAP and Google Cloud, we have all that data, customer data, processing data. We have the data life cycle from the manufacturers all the way through the patient till it gets in the patient body. What can we do with that data now that it's sitting in Google Cloud and fully leverage ML AI capabilities that Google releases within that analytics platform and make it truly a better experience for healthcare, but also focus on making it really a healthier person. Keep the patient healthier.
Welcome everybody to Securing Web Applications and APIs Anywhere. My name is Gregory Leibovitz. I'm in product management responsible for cloud network security portfolio offerings. Shelly?
Hi everybody, Shelly Hershkovitz. I'm product manager at Apogee, specifically responsible for API security. Really happy to be here with you today.
We're going to talk about Google's WAF solution, API protection specifically. We're going to kind of work from the edge in, starting with DDoS and web application firewall with Cloud Armor. Then we're going to talk about API management and security for APIs with Apogee. Shelly's going to introduce a brand new product to us, a case study, and then we're going to wrap. So here we go. The rapid expansion of web applications, mobile apps, and APIs has dramatically increased the threat landscape, both in the breadth and the complexity of the types of attacks that our customers are facing. It's like this shiny new toy that every threat actor wants to play with: APIs, web apps, right? And what we're hearing from our customers is that they're just kind of overwhelmed with a set of requirements and this growing set of attacks to which they have to mount a defense to protect against. So you've got regulatory compliance, obviously PCI is a big one there. Network ops and reliability, making sure that the app is responding quickly and staying up. Constant stream of DDoS attacks in various shapes and sizes. And the gaming industry has this really cool use case where, this great example where competitors purchase attack software to be able to take out or slow down other players. I mean, it's that competitive, right? Malicious bots where scraping and stockouts fall into play. And then targeted attacks and exploits. Credential theft and PII, leaked accounts and creds are part of that. So as customers are trying to address all this, they're assembling what they hope is a comprehensive solution to prevent this sort of app fraud and abuse and malfunction. And it's pretty tough. What we're hearing is that pulling these piece parts together, it makes it really difficult for them to be able to manage and monitor and troubleshoot the whole solution. Mostly these piece parts have in the past come from various vendors, sometimes physical devices, and it's a lot to try to tie together. So what the industry is beginning to do is kind of refer to the way to solve all this as WAP, Web Application and API Protection. And its highest level effective WAP has two main components. The first is sufficient dedicated security infrastructure to be able to handle the force, the volume of attacks. And that volume can be measured in like numbers of packets and gigabits per second of bandwidth, numbers of simultaneous connections. The second big thing is threat detection and protection at multiple layers of the OSI model, from volumetric attacks at L3 IP, L4 transport, all the way up to protocol misuse deep within L7 content. The second thing involves a whole bunch of mechanisms and approaches, and these are constantly needing to expand and sort of morph and adapt in order to be effective against the evolving threats of the attackers. So on the first point, in 2020, Google's Cloud Armor mitigated the then largest DDoS attack that the world had seen, 2.5 terabits per second of attack bandwidth thrown at our web apps with no impact to app, perceivable impact to app performance or our customers' experience. So we've proven that that number one point is really important and that we have the dedicated infrastructure and the scalability to absorb those kinds of attacks. On the second point, where we need a multi-layered security approach, Google's WAP solution brings together DDoS and web application firewall, an API management service with API security, and advanced fraud and bot detection capabilities. So one level deeper on that kind of thought, you can see that at our edge, we have a lot of detection and prevention capabilities. We're working off two kinds of data. One is network data. So this would be like where we're finding L3, L4 volumetric DDoS protection, and where we have our pre-canned mitigations for the OWASP top 10. And this is also where we're achieving bot management. And then the second is through data from client request behavior and the analytics of that. And here we do risk scoring, and then we take responsive actions at the edge based on those risk scores. Now, inside a little bit, closer to your workloads, is where we operate a full service API management stack to help you protect against advanced security threats. An important note here is that this altogether is a based service, but it protects workloads wherever they may reside. So for example, it could be on-prem or in colo, like we show here in the middle, or it could be on Google Cloud, like we show at the top, or on other public clouds, like we show on the bottom. So it's fully hybrid. It addresses a multi-cloud architecture. Shelly, why don't we deep dive into APIs?
Yes, so within the WAP use cases, API protection is a big focus for us. The reason is that recent trends indicate a large increase in API abuse, driven mainly from digital transformation in pretty much every industry. API provide agility, faster time to market, and accelerate the value creation. They also allow partners to interact with large force multipliers. As the industry focuses more on ML-based automation and IoT, APIs are naturally growing with it. Just a few months back, on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, we at Apogee, we saw a peak of transaction per second, and API calls grew by 46%. In light of these API trends, API attack vectors are the new candy for cyber criminals. Media headlines related to API cyber attacks are frequently published. Only last year, LinkedIn had a data leak of 700 million users' information that were exposed publicly. Similar vulnerability exposed Facebook, where they had 500 million of their users' PII publicly available. Gartner stated that by 2022, API abuse will be the most frequent attack vector, resulting in data breaches for enterprise web applications. And in Apogee, we also witnessed it. And last year, we saw an increase of 170% of abusive API traffic. Imagine 170% increase year over year. The API threat vector is definitely an attractive one right now. So let's take a look where those pieces actually sit together in the architecture, specifically with API protection in mind. Out on the edge, we have the external load balancer and DDoS WAF bot management infrastructure. The latter is called Google Cloud Armor, and Gregory will dive into it momentarily. If the traffic makes it through about 12 layers of inspection at that point, it proceeds to API management and protection infrastructure, essentially a proxy service with several more layers of inspection. If the traffic is still found legitimate, it gets forwarded to the backends. Note again that these workloads can reside on a mixed, hybrid, or multi-cloud locations.
So again, that first outer layer of detection and enforcement point, that's called Cloud Armor. And with it, customers are able to protect their applications from DDoS attacks, filter incoming requests by geography, or most L7 parameters that you would find like in the request headers or cookies. As a WAF, Cloud Armor contains pre-configured rules that prevent against the most common attacks and vulnerability exploits and attempts, like the OWASP Top 10. Users have access to real-time telemetry and cloud logging, where all the rest of their Google Cloud logging goes. And their Cloud Armor's decisions about what it's done on a per request basis are stored, as well as monitoring dashboards that give granular views of allowed, denied, or previewed traffic so that you can begin to characterize the way your apps behave. Going a bit deeper on Cloud Armor, it has this L3, L4 DDoS protection that's always on for all projects. It's sort of included with global load balancing automatically. You don't have to do anything. There's no additional cost. And it detects not just volumetric, but also protocol-based network attacks. So like SYN floods and UDP amplification attacks. Second is the pre-configured WAF rules. So I mentioned OWASP Top 10 for web apps, but also the mod security open source WAF rules, and a few other critical threats like the recent Log4j. With our custom rules language, you can create filtering policies to allow, deny, redirect, or rate limit connections. I want to talk for a second about adaptive protection. It's our ML-based layer 7 capability. It's really differentiated in the market. The ML models use a whole bunch of different attributes to start to characterize good traffic, and then they notify you when highly suspicious patterns are emerging. It even proposes a custom rule to block the attack that you can, with just one click, enforce at the edge. And these models have been tuned over the last 5 years on our own web services. And now we're offering it as a feature to our customers so that they can reduce the time to detect and mitigate attacks. Second thing I want to call out is bot management. In this case, Cloud Armor is acting as an enforcement point at the edge for response actions that get triggered by risk scoring determined by the ML models in our fraud and bot protection engines. And on that point, fraud and bot detection capability is called reCAPTCHA Enterprise. It's powered by our learnings with reCAPTCHA, the open source tool that has been protecting millions of sites on the web. The system uses a risk tuning kind of mechanism. It brings in a bunch of signal from JavaScript client in a browser and or from an SDK that application developers can put within their app. So using that stuff, it learns per site what the human behavior looks like versus what bot activity looks like. So then the system creates a risk score, which allows for the progressive action. So for example, in addition to simply allowing the connection to continue, you could require a second factor for authentication. Cloud Armor could redirect the connection or force a manual challenge or outright block it. So the next piece of WAP is the API management services and infrastructure, and this is really Shelley's area of expertise.
Thank you, Gregory. I hope so. I'm working on that.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So Apigee is our API platform that provides a single point of management for API through their entire life cycle from both the development and operation perspective. The platform inspects API requests to protect, scale, adapt, control, and monitor API traffic. Apogee's out-of-the-box policies enable developers to augment APIs with features to control traffic, enhance their performance, and enforce security without requiring them to write a single line of code or even to modify any backend services. Building security around an API takes time and significant expertise, but Apogee can provide this to any API in minutes. Security policies let developers control access to APIs with OAuth, API key validations, and other threat protection capabilities. Apogee then can also support positive security models to understand the structure of the API request in order to distinguish between valid and invalid requests. Now, with Apogee X, we provide more granular security features, such as authorization and authentication capabilities and management, rate limiting on the API backends in order to not overload the backend services. And users can also define their own rules on API payloads in order to examine and identify any attack payloads that might come in. Generally, Apogee is focused on protecting from OWASP Top 10 for APIs. Now, I'm really excited to tell you today about a new product that we're releasing. It is called Advanced API Security, and it's part of Apogee. This product includes premium security features around 3 focus areas. The first one is that we're focusing on providing more visibility and control to your APIs. We do that in order to eliminate any blind spot and let you know when on which APIs are available and what kind of security controls they have on top of them. This could help you identify any issues that might possess risk on your environment and help you comply with internal and external compliance requirements. Next, we focus on bot and abuse detection in real-time API traffic. Here we aim to reflect who consumes your APIs and detect any intruders or abuse on your systems. We have many interesting new developments, and the road ahead is very exciting. Finally, we want to give you the best experience when working with Google's security product portfolio. We want to integrate the products so they will enforce each other's security value and not just overlay each other. We will focus on seamless integration, sharing relevant information and data, for example, blocking bad entities, and easy troubleshooting the entire stack. Just a little bit of information, of technical information under the hood. Advanced API Security is part of Apogee Gateways, so there is no need to install any additional software. Security analysis is performed on the control plane with existing metadata gathered from the runtime plane. That there is no impact on runtime processing or any additional latency. And enforcement, of course, is done in the runtime plane. Let's look at the use case of one of our nice customers. They are a brand name financial company, and they had login APIs that were used for a while by their commercial application. Now they wanted to expand their business and offer a marketplace to their partners. As part of this innovation offering, they were tasked with 3 security requirements. The first one is to provide high availability of the services and APIs. The second is to have consistent security policies across their APIs in order to assure their partners the data is secured. And the third one is around detecting bot and any abuse on their APIs. That led them to work with us. We were able to answer those 3 requirements using Google Cloud WAF. First, we used DDoS protection by Cloud Armor to ensure high availability of their services. Next, we provided consistency of security standards using autonomic API security. And third, we detected any bot and abuse using reCAPTCHA and anomaly detection in Apogee. That way, our nice customer didn't have to go and negotiate with 3 different vendors and didn't have to tailor a solution that will be hard to support in case of a problem. Back to you, Gregory.
All right, let's land this plane. So our technology stands out in the industry. Our planet scale infrastructure has proven it's stopping one of the largest DDoS attacks on public record with Cloud Armor, as I showed you earlier on the graph. Our bot and fraud detection with reCAPTCHA has 90% of that market share. And our full cycle API management with Apogee was named a leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant. Now, with the introduction of advanced API security offering that Shelly just shared about, the solution really becomes that much more powerful. To sum it up, the Google Cloud WAF solution is a suite of security capabilities at various layers and various topological points within the Google Cloud platform that all work together to create a better protection for your digital footprint. All this comes from one provider, giving you just one place to turn when unexpected events occur, instead of trying to cobble together various vendors and their piece parts. And with a 50 to 70% lower cost than other leading vendors, it frees up resources that you can reinvest back into making your killer app. So now that you've heard all about this, it's time for you to take a next step. You could refresh yourself on what we've been talking about. Maybe you missed part of it. If you want to maybe even go deeper on this topic, go to cloud.google.com/WAP. That's WAAP. For that first layer, that DDoS, WAF, and bot management, it's really as easy as 3 clicks to start playing with Cloud Armor. Go to your Cloud Console under Networking, click Network Security, and then Cloud Armor. You can also learn more and get documentation at cloud.google.com/armor.
For API management and protection, you can fill out the form, which you can find in the session profile card, and we will get in touch with you and enable you the new advanced API security for free for a trial period. Or you can just start exploring Apogee in Google Cloud Platform. Again, open the Google Cloud Platform navigation bar, and you will just see it there. You can also learn about it from our documentation, cloud.google.com/apogee.
Okay, Shelly, that's a wrap. Thanks. It really has been a lot of fun doing this whole thing with you. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and have a great security summit.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Magali Bon, Director of Partnerships and Channels at Google Cloud Security, and thrilled to be with you here at Security Summit. So today we're going to talk about detection and response capabilities, and we're going to go through some real-life examples. I have the pleasure to share the stage today with Brett Perry, who is CISO at .Food, and Jason Slodebeck, who is Vice President of Channels at Sideris, a strategic partner for Google Cloud Security. So Brett and Jason, thank you very much for joining me today, and welcome. So we're going to jump right away into it. Brett, you've had quite an interesting journey in your career. What are some of the most common pain points you've seen organizations struggle with from a security and network perspective?
Sure. Thanks, Magali. So at 20 years of cybersecurity leadership, my biggest pain point has always been a SIM and the ownership of a SIM. The last two companies I was with, they had to have a SIM because it was a checkbox for some sort of a regulation, for PCI regulation. And it never really served any purpose. It never brought any value. We could never dedicate enough resources or time to make it work or to make it bring value to the company. So it was really just a checkbox that just kind of went unchecked, so to speak, and nobody was on, nobody had eyes on glass. Nobody was, monitoring what was going on. And so for me, that was my biggest frustration is, we were not getting the value out of our SIMs.
Jason, what is your view on it?
Yeah, thanks, Magali. We repeatedly run across organizations just like Dot Foods who have struggled to build and maintain their SOC in-house, and they've struggled to get their SIM to be useful and valuable. And one of the areas they struggle with is hiring and training and retaining security talent. That could be almost impossible for a lot of companies. And then just the total cost of ownership with license costs, infrastructure, and the people for a traditional SIM is enormous.
Yeah, we've seen that also coming from other customers. So, Brett, later in your career, you had the opportunity to address these issues from a more senior vantage point. How did you address this? What did you do?
So the moment I got there, I had a lot of very important decisions to make because we were building a security program from the ground up, and I knew the one thing that I did not want to put a lot of effort into because of the budget, because of, as Jason mentioned, hiring, training, and retaining security analysts and security engineers, and that I did not want to bring in an on-prem SIM into the environment. My journey was to go out and look for something that would actually cover both of those issues that I was looking at.
Okay, so Jason, how did you answer, those needs from Dot Food?
Yeah, for us, taking the power of Google Chronicle and Google Search applied to all of their security telemetry, and for all of our customers, their security telemetry has been transformative. We love the capabilities of Chronicle with unlimited ingest, and we combine it with our services that are really designed to provide an outcome. The outcome of we're going to detect every threat in your environment, and we're going to respond to every threat in your environment. But to sign up for those outcomes, we obviously need amazing technology. And so we've combined what Google Chronicle's built with our 24/7 operation, people, process technology so that we could deliver that safety and security for Dot and for all of our customers.
So for Dot Foods, this is really a game changer, right? So from a security program that is starting from the ground floor, signing with the Sideris in the early days before they even had a partnership with Google Chronicle. We were actually onboarding and doing the things that we needed to do, and then we hear from Sideris that they're partnering with Google Chronicle, and that really kind of gave us a little bit more relief. Like we just moved a lot more forward, and taking our program from here to way up to where we can, concentrate on the things that we really needed to do, deploy the technologies, and move forward from there.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let's break that down practically. So can you give us an example of an incident and how the team responded? So we go into the details.
Sure. So I'll give you two examples off the top of my head. One of them was Log4j, which everybody was talking about late last year. And what are we going to do about that? Are we vulnerable? How do we mitigate that problem? And so my engineers and I got on the phone with Sideris right away, and they had already been looking into the mitigation factors, the IOCs, everything that they need to in order to provide us the information to go out and mitigate any risk to our environment. The second one I want to touch on, and something that's a little bit more close to my heart, was the SolarWinds hack. And so we heard about this in a dark day in December, and we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what a supply chain attack was. I mean, this was one that was affecting governments affecting all the military, and Dot Foods being North America's largest food distributor, could have come to a screeching halt if we were indeed involved in this supply chain attack. So we immediately got on the phone with the experts over at Sideris and started coming up with a plan on how to mitigate and lower our risk. And also, and Jason could talk to it about Google Chronicles, past logs and stuff that they could actually look through and see if we were in any danger of being affected by this.
Yeah. So Jason, can you tell us how you were able to uncover for what most companies had been deeply embedded for some time? How did you manage to use the power of the platform to see how SolarWinds may have impacted .food?
Yeah, this is really where Google Chronicle, the core set of capabilities, shines. The question that every organization around the world was asking after the SolarWinds announcement went public was, what happened across my organization, every single device, in detail, 7.5 months ago? Did I have any of my devices that did a DNS lookup for a certain list of attacker domains? Did I have these file hashes ever on any device in my environment 7.5 months ago? What about network communication, process launches? And so if I did have any devices that may have communicated outbound or had vulnerable versions of SolarWinds, I needed to know all of the detail of what happened before and after so that I can understand the scope and the impact of that. That's where Chronicle shines. It has unlimited ingest, so you have all of the rich logs from the endpoint, from cloud, from SSO, from DNS, all in one place, all stitched together. So really, we could do simple searches, or we could take IOCs that were automatically adjusted, and in milliseconds know that customers were safe, or there might be something we needed to follow up on. And if there was something to follow up on, we could completely get our arms around the scope and the impact of that, all because of Chronicle's technology. So it's the perfect pairing of our threat research teams and threat hunting teams and rules teams, combined with what we believe was something very unique and unprecedented in the world in terms of having a cloud native SIEM that, because it had all of this data in a cost-effective platform, we could really keep our customers safe and give them the confidence to know that they were safe.
Okay, thank you very much. This is amazing. Thank you, both of you, for sharing your security operations journey. And we talk soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miley.